Good evening. My name is Rachel Grunwald and I'm the Director of Programming at U3. I'm delighted to welcome you all from wherever you are around the UK and the globe to join us tonight at this very special evening, the latest in our Global Diaspora series of high-level conversations touching on issues that concern Jewish communities around the world. This flagship series is supported by Genesis Philanthropy Group. Genesis are key partners for JW3 not just on this series, but on so much of our work seeking to build a home for Jews from all backgrounds in our beautiful community centre in London and now online. For this and for their support and partnership, we thank them. Shortly, we will welcome to the stage, or screen, Dmitriy Salita, otherwise known as the Star of David. Dmitry is a former welterweight boxer and an Orthodox Jewish promoter. He was born in Odessa and moved to New York as a young child. He's not only extraordinarily talented, he's also somebody who can offer a unique perspective on the interplay of Jewish identity, elite sport, and public persona on a global field, a perspective few of us could otherwise glimpse. It's really a privilege to welcome him. He'll be in conversation with sports journalist and broadcaster Sarah Shepherd, whom we're delighted to welcome back to the stage, or the ring. In 2016, Sarah was named Journalist of the Year at the Women's Sport Trust Awards, and is author of the book Born Fighter, so a perfect fit for this evening. Dmitry and Sarah would be delighted to welcome you into the conversation once they've spoken to each other. Indeed, that's the point of the evening, so please do put your questions into the comments section underneath the video on YouTube or Facebook. My colleague, Neil Marcus, who's produced this event, will appear later in the evening to feed these questions in. I know you're itching to get started, but first, a quick word about JW3. We have a mission to engage more and more people in positive Jewish experiences and expressions of Jewish life, to unite the Jewish community across lines of difference, and to foster a positive culture of encounter between Jewish people and others. The temporary closure of our building in March and November, and now, has only spurred us on to learn how to do this remotely, and we've been providing Jewishly powered inspiration, connection, and comfort to thousands of people online in these dark months. Back in the building, we're running a food bank and community kitchen that will shortly have distributed 100,000 meals worth of food to those most in need in our local Camden community, whether as hot cooked meals or in food parcels. We've squeezed as much in-person joy as is possible out of every day when it has been possible for us to safely open up, and we'll continue to do so. If you enjoy or believe in what we do and what we stand for, please take a step towards supporting us. The simplest way is to sign up via email so we can keep in touch, or to talk about us to a friend, Jewish or non-Jewish, who might be interested. Thank you. Once again, please do put your questions in the comments section. Don't be shy to throw your hat in the ring, as it were. We can't be together in person just now, but by gum, we can connect and inquire and enjoy chewing over ideas, especially in such august company. We've now got a short clip to give you a taste of Dmitry in action. I believe it's called a sizzle reel. Then it's over to you, Dmitry and Sarah. Enjoy.
Dmitry Salita. Technical knockout, a new NABA Junior Welterweight Champion, Dmitry, Star of David, Salita.
Hi, Dmitry. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight. Thanks for being here.
I do, Sarah. Pleasure and honor. Watching that clip, I feel like I'm walking into the ring.
It's not the first time you've been in the ring in the UK, is it? Well, it wouldn't be.
Hopefully this one is better than last time.
For the people who don't know, Dmitry fought Amir Khan back in, was it 2009?
2009, yeah.
Yeah.
No need for reminders.
We might come to that later. So, like I said, thanks for being here tonight. I wanted to start by touching on your youth growing up in Odessa before moving to the US at the age of 9, as Rachel mentioned. Can you just tell us a bit about your upbringing in the former Soviet Union and how religion and boxing did or didn't fit into that?
Sure. I grew up in a traditional Soviet family. My name is Dima, and my brother's name is Misha. So it's Dmitry and Michael, which are traditional, Soviet names. Didn't grow up with sports. My father was an engineer, and my mother was an accountant. Not much of a Jewish or religious life in Odessa. My grandmother Ita, who we grew up with, she was born before the Russian Revolution. So when she was a little baby, when she was a kid, she went to Cheder, which is a Jewish school. So she remembered some things, but really, there was not much observance. I only remember that on Passover, my father would somehow find a way to buy matzahs and to his best ability tell us the story of the Jewish people's exodus from Egypt and the reason why we eat matzahs. As for boxing, I was, I guess a kid that when I was in kindergarten and in first grade that kids picked on. So my parents used to get a lot of calls. Was just kind of like a weekly kid, and my parents wanted me to join a sports club. So at the age of 7, I signed up for karate, just to kind of strengthen myself and to be able to defend myself and kind of build my immune system. So that as far as combat sports, growing up, it was, and as far as Judaism, it was eating matzahs and some stories, some tales of Israel. But that was the extent of it.
So being Jewish for you didn't really kind of impact hugely on your life until you moved to the US. Is that sort of fair to say?
Well, my family moved to the United States. Really, my parents and my extended family moved to the United States. All of us, really, because at that time, Jewish people didn't really have the ability to reach the highest echelons of society vis-a-vis education or work. And it was really an unsettling time. There were lots of difficulties socially and economically. So when these things happen in Russia historically, the Jews many times get the bad end of the stick. So in 1991 we left a couple of months before Soviet Union broke down into different countries. So I'm from Odessa, Ukraine now, and I also want to say that now in the Soviet Union, in Ukraine, Jewish life is vibrant and has really resurrected, and it's really incredible. So my experience back then is not really reflective of what it is now, because now it's tremendous.
Yeah.
Coming to the United States was the first time that I was really exposed to seeing Jewish people in different forms and kind of different expressions of what it means. Was in Brooklyn, New York.
You were very young when you left Odessa, but do you have any memories of experiencing anti-Semitism there, or even once you went to the US?
So what I remember is certainly I have a brother who's 9 years older than I am. Brother, my family, my relatives, about different experiences. I remember when I was, I think, 7 years old. My father is a traditional kind of professional guy, very calm and peaceful. And there was rumors of a pogrom, of a kind of a night when some folks would get together and kind of go inside Jewish houses and wreak havoc. So I remember my father somehow bought a gun, and it was just so unusual for him. And many of my relatives somehow found a car and went to the villages outside of the city to kind of protect themselves. Nothing happened, however, but that just tell you that the possibility for that was in the air, and shortly thereafter we left to the United States.
Yeah, that's something that would stay with you as a kid, I imagine.
For sure. And I remember coming to the U.S. Embassy, which was, and really the reason why Russian Jews were allowed to immigrate to the United States and to Israel at that time was because they weren't allowed to fully experience and express their Judaism. And we didn't even really know what it meant because there were no rabbis, there were no synagogues, there were no educational programs. Really across all spectrums of religion, different religions, but certainly Judaism. So, there was no way to learn. When we left, shortly, a couple of months after we left, there was a Chabad rabbi that came to Odessa, and Chabad is an organization that does a lot of outreach work. And so when we came here, I remember hearing about it.
And in terms of, you mentioned Israel there, how much did you know about Israel when you were growing up, and how has your relationship with Israel developed over the years?
So, great question, because Russian Jewry, Soviet Jewry, from my viewpoint, back in those days, expressed their love and their connections to Judaism through Israel, finding out what was going on, finding newspapers, listening to American wave radio. When something good happened in Israel, it inspired him and gave him strength and gave him life. So there was kind of this inborn. We always knew that Israel was the land of the Jewish people. So since I was a kid. Certainly a strong connection. And in 2009, right after I visited London, from London I didn't fly back to the US. I flew to Israel. It was my first trip, and it was fantastic, and I guess possibly life-changing in some ways, because it opened my eyes and gave me, kind of gave me a different perspective in a very challenging time in my career and in my life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Did it? Because I've spoken to a Muslim fighter. She did Muay Thai and now she's boxing, and she felt for a long time like she was doing something wrong, like she was going against her religion. And it was only when she went to Mecca that she almost felt like she got closer to her faith, and she came back and she no longer felt that that she was doing something wrong. Did that visit to Israel, did that change the way you felt about boxing in any way? Or
no, I mean, I never felt that I was doing anything wrong. I actually always felt that I was doing something good and using my talent to the best of ability for myself and socially and culturally. But losing for the world. So prior to my fight with Amir Khan for the world title, I haven't lost for over 10 years. As an amateur professional. So obviously going to that fight, you have certain anticipation, certain dreams, and then it ends in a way that you don't anticipate, and that really crushes you. So really going to Israel really inspired me that from falling down and from our lows, we have the ability to get on high. And I remember visiting the Holocaust Museum in Israel, and it's a very vivid museum. You go in there and you want to cry and scream. It's really, really, it's a wonderful exhibit of a terrible thing. So, and then at the end of the museum, you go out and there's like a window that looks over Israel. You see to yourself, this just happened, less than 100 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. And look at what the Jewish people did. Look at what was built from destruction. So, destruction, and just gave me the strength and the inspiration that you can build yourself up, when you feel that you're in the ashes, when you're down and out. And that's what life is about many times. It's about being able to pick yourself up, find inspiration. And I was very, very lucky to find that inspiration and for that trip to happen at that time, to give me the jolt that I needed for myself.
It's amazing how things happen like that sometimes. Things come to you at the right time when you need them, isn't it?
Truly.
How did that move to New York when you were 9? How did that impact on you as a kid? especially in terms of your Jewish identity, because presumably that was where you really sort of locked into it.
Tremendously. So before we came on, I was to test the mic, I was rapping, and there was no hip hop music when I was growing up in Odessa. So certainly coming to Brooklyn, New York, gave me a different cultural perspective of life completely. We were very poor, we were on welfare and food stamps, and I went to school, different culture, different music, different food, different language. That was quite challenging. And when you come to the United States of America, looking at videos of certain Hollywood films, you have a vision, one vision. Then when especially when you're a kid, and then you come and it's something completely different, and you're living in a life of poverty. So it was a challenging and educational time in terms of my Judaism. I saw Jewish people of different expressions walking down the streets as certain blocks slow down or completely stop on Saturday, on the Sabbath. So it really kind of piqued my interest to find out what it was. My grandmother, Ita, who came with us, so we lived in a one-bedroom apartment. It was my father, my mother, my brother, and my grandmother. And I remember she was born in Yom Kippur, so she was in her late 70s. And when Yom Kippur came, she would go to the synagogue from morning to night. So it's very interesting. It was also inspiring to me, even though I didn't really know. I felt, but I didn't know that she went to a Jewish kindergarten when she was 70 years prior, and hasn't been to a synagogue since then. And now that she's in the United States, she and an older lady that trouble walking, but made herself to not eat, not drink, and sit in the synagogue all day. As a young kid, that made me realize that this is my tradition. This is it's in me, even though we may have lost it, for some generations, for some decades. But let me learn. Let me find out what this is all about.
Am I right in thinking it was a meeting with a quite a special individual when your mum was unwell, that kind of it was meeting him that really led you down that path as well?
Yeah, so I was always asking my parents to take me to different kind of Jewish organizations and they did, but it never really, but it didn't work for me. It didn't, those folks, sometimes it didn't click, Then one time, my mother, when I was 14 years old, I had a relapse of breast cancer. And one day I came to visit my mother at Kettering Sloan Hospital, and she was rooming with an Orthodox religious lady. And this lady's husband came to visit his wife. So we spent several hours together. I had a lot of questions about God, about Judaism. He had questions about boxing. He was a very warm man, and he took my information as a result of our meeting, and he gave it to a local Chabad rabbi. His name is Rabbi Zalman Lieberf, who's actually from London. He started to call me. Initially, I really felt uncomfortable. While I had respect for Judaism, but from a distance, I really didn't feel comfortable about going to an Orthodox place. I just felt that it was a different life. But he was very persistent, and one day I came to check it out. I went during the week, and I saw people there from different walks of life. Some that looked more expressively more observant, others looked more secular, but everybody communicated, and there was kind of a very warm feel in the air. So it inspired me, and I felt that it gave me strength in my personal life, and it inspired me in the boxing ring. So I came back, and that was the beginning of my journey in Judaism.
Yeah, amazing. And how was it that you found boxing in New York? Because obviously New York is a busy place. There's a lot of stuff you can get into. So what led you to a boxing gym?
Great question. I was pretty involved in karate when back in Odessa, and when we came here, after a couple of months, my parents wanted me to integrate into American culture. So I like karate, so they signed me up for a karate club. A gentleman by Paul Marmando was our karate teacher, and I really liked it. My trainer, Sensei Paul, and my older brother, throughout the years, because I did karate for like 3 years, I think, 4 years, and saw some talent in me, and they said that boxing is where you should try to develop yourself. And I only heard about two gyms. One was Gleason's gym, and the other one was Starrett City Boxing Club. Gleason's gym was a little bit further away from my house, and you had to pay money. Starrett City Boxing Club was also far away, but a little bit closer, and it was free. And one hot summer afternoon, my father and my brother took me down the Starrett City Boxing Club, and it's in a basement, so it's in a basement of a garage, so it's like a ramp that you walk down to walk into the gym, and there's no heat and there's no air conditioning, and there's no water. So, pre-corona. This is pre-corona. So I walked in, and I still remember, if somebody would ask me to draw a picture, I could still draw where everybody was. It just kind of immediately inspired me. It took me over, and I felt like a kid in a candy store. And that's when I met Jimmy O, who has went on to become a very influential, positive figure in my life. And that's in the summer of 1995 is when the Starrett City Boxing Club started.
Did it have that unique smell that all boxing gyms tend to have?
For sure. Sweat, blood, and tears.
Yeah.
Well, more sweat.
Yeah, hits you right away as soon as you walk in.
Exactly.
By the way, one thing I just have to mention is that JW3 have set up a survey for people after tonight. If you could fill it in, it's just to help them understand a little bit about what you like about the Global Diaspora series, and just ensure that we can make sure it continues to kind of please people. All the responses are anonymous, and the link is on the screen now, and it will also be on YouTube and Facebook at the end of the evening. So if you have time and you can spend 5 minutes, it will be really invaluable for us. So thank you. So did you kind of take to the sport quite naturally, Dmitry? Obviously you've done karate, but that's quite different to throwing punches.
So I guess I had a little bit of talent, but I think the thing that really made me improve and get better was my ability and my hunger to want to be the best, and really a high level of competition that was in the boxing gym. So I remember when I came, I couldn't do 10 push-ups. I couldn't do one pull-up, and as part of the training regimen, my trainer after the workouts would give me homework to go home and do 10 sets of 10 push-ups, and he would say, like, even if you can't do it, you do it on your knees. And in a couple of months, I would do 50 push-ups at a time and 10 pull-ups. But that gym environment, it was when you hear stories of different boxing gyms with lots of talent. I mean, it was just so many talented fighters in their peak, my age. So just to list some for the boxing fans. So it was me, Louis Collazo, Curtis Stevens, Shannon Briggs, Monty Barrett, Travis Sims, Tarvis Sims, then Saddam Ali, Zab Judah, who trained there very often. This was even before he turned pro. And I probably left out a couple of world champions. I mean, it was really, really, and a lot of very talented fighters. Danny Jacobs, a lot of very talented fighters that were national champions, never turned pro. So it was really an intense. I mean, every day you go in a boxing ring, it was war. And I remember when I used to box when I was 13 years old, like I would box, and every day, like literally every day that I would box, it was like do or die, man. I felt like the other guy was literally trying to kill me. And as I was boxing, I remember the bags used to stop, and then people would just kind of get around the ring and then watch the little kids go at it. But so that developed my talent, that developed my inner will to win, and I progressed, I would say, quite fast in that very competitive and hot environment.
Yeah.
Hot in the summer and cold in the winter.
Obviously, that kind of stuff develops you physically, but mentally as well. Like you said, as a kid who'd come from outside, who was an outsider in lots of ways, did being in that gym and being in that environment really kind of build up your confidence outside of the gym?
For sure. Well, socioeconomically, culturally, I felt really this, even though I was very different, I was different. I mean, I came from a different community. I stood out in every way. But all of us, all the guys that I mentioned and many guys that I didn't mention, were using boxing as a tool to make a better life for ourselves. And so that created common interest and kind of a common goal. And friendships that lasted forever. And I feel that for myself, people from my community don't really have a chance to experience that type of view of life and that type of education, that I had the privilege of experiencing for so many years. And Jimmy O'Farrell really took me under his wing and really, became a central figure in my life, personally and obviously professionally. And spend hours really, even after the gym, tutoring me and talking to me about philosophies of life and different people. And that boxing gym had like 4 different trainers. Andrew Rozier, who's trainer of the year, Star City Boxing Club. Norma Lorick, trainer of world champion, Star City Boxing Club. So there were 4 or 5 different trainers, and even though it was one gym, but they were all kind of against one another. It was all the fighters were boxing each other, and everybody has a different ego and a different personality, and everybody wants to be the man. So for Jimmy was the director of Star City Boxing Club, so you would have to manage all those very strong and talented personalities, and it was no easy task, And once in a while, between the fighters and the trainers and different people that the gym would attract, there'd be some altercations, some real heat, as they say. So it was really, incredible for me to see and to learn from it for so many years. So I'm very blessed by that.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that there would have been occasions where you'd gone home with, a busted lip or a black eye or something. How, when your family kind of knew what you were involved in and what you were doing, how did they feel about it?
Well, so I joined Star City Boxing when I was 13, and about 6 months in, I fought in my first tournament, which was the Silver Gloves. I won the state Silver Gloves, and I lost in the finals to Chad Dawson, who became a world champion. It was at 95 pounds. I lost a 3-2 decision. My parents felt a little bit, started to have some conversations with me, especially my relatives, about how serious I was. But then my mother she had a relapse of breast cancer, and so kind of everybody's attention shifted to that, and boxing really served as therapy for me, as an after school, not only after school, as a way to kind of have something positive in my life and something to look forward to, and a way to kind of divert my mind and focus on something positive. So, so for a couple of years, no, but then then after I won the nationals and I won the Golden Gloves, and I started to get a lot of interest from from different folks in the professional boxing industry. Before I turned pro, my father asked me, "Do you really want to do this?" And I said yes, and that was really it.
And obviously, your devotion to your faith was kind of developing at the same time as your boxing career was developing. Did you ever feel a tension, or did you ever think, well, what about when it comes to fighting on the weekend? And like, when did those kind of thoughts come into your head?
So my growth in my observance of Judaism was very gradual, and I felt and feel that God gives everybody different talent, and we're supposed to make the best of our community, of our environment, through our talent, and serve the world through that. So boxing was my talent, and I grew up in the boxing gym in the hood of Brooklyn, New York, and with Jimmy O, who grew up during segregation. So I saw and experienced expression of people's rights and complaints and the good and the bad, and the people's feelings in a very expressive and open way. And so really my educational process as a United States, as an adult, as a teenager becoming an adult, really happened through that. So I wasn't part of that community. However, that that outspokenness rubbed off on me. And Jimmy O would kind of coach me through that. And he foresaw many things in my life that he told me about when I was younger that are happening now. And one of them kind of was, kind of the position that came my way as a result of, me being open and proud of who I am and kind of representing that in the ring. But my observance started to progress, and then I got invited to fight in the U.S. Championships. And before I was going to this tournament, I came to my rabbi and I asked him for a blessing that I should win. And he directed me to write a letter in through a Chabad custom to the Rabbi. And the answer that Rabbi Zalman told me, for me, was meant you shouldn't box on Shabbos. And at that time, it was really an uncomfortable step for me to make, to be quite honest, and which I expressed to the rabbi, but he assured me that it'll only lead to good things. And, hesitantly I accepted it. But deep down, I knew that it was the right thing to do. And left for that tournament a couple of days later, made it to the finals, being the underdog, beating some of the best in the country. And the final was scheduled for 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And I told USA Boxing that I wouldn't box, and they said that you'll be disqualified. And a guy by the name of Dylan Hernandez, who worked for the Sun Herald, which was the paper that was covering, maybe it was a different local paper that was covering the fight. Now he's a writer for the LA Times, and I recently connected with him. But he interviewed me after I won I won one of my fights in the semifinals and beat one of the favorites to win the tournament. And he said, "What can we expect from you at in the finals?" I said, "I won't be able to fight in the finals because it's on the Sabbath, and USA Boxing told me that they would disqualify me. I'm an observant Jew." And Dylan Hernandez spoke on USA Boxing on my behalf, and they changed my date and my time, and I won. So that was great. And then I'm sorry.
I said, so the rabbi was correct. Good things will come.
The rabbi was correct, for sure. Yes. And then I fought in the Golden Gloves a couple of months, New York City Golden Gloves, which is a huge tournament. The finals at Madison Square Garden. And that year, I had a lot of great fighters in different weight classes. I won, and I also got the Sugar Robinson Award as at a tournament. Again, that year, a lot of great fighters who went on to become world champions and some of the best pros in the sport today. So that was really fantastic. And after that, different promoters started to call me, and I decided to sign a contract with Top Rank. That was the beginning of my professional journey.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Bob Arum. He's, for people who don't know of him, he's a legendary promoter in the US. He's now 89.
Amazing.
I think he started promoting. Was it before 66? He definitely came over here with Ali in 66. I remember him telling me. What was it that made you choose to go with Bob? Am I right in thinking that he's Jewish?
He's Jewish. Yeah, he's Jewish, and legend has it that he comes from a more or less a religious family. So, and maybe even went to yeshiva. So what was the decision to sign with Arum? Well, I was a big fan of Oscar De La Hoya. To me, he was a great fighter, promoter. And at that time, I remember. So after I won the U.S. Nationals, Top Rank flew me out to the office in Las Vegas, and for me, as a young kid, really, I was 18 years old. It was really a tremendous experience. And you go in the Top Rank office and you see the structure and and the nice building and all these different things, and I met with other folks and other promoters that even maybe offered me more money initially. However, I felt like the professionalism and the structure of Top Rank was unmatched in the boxing industry, and I felt that specifically for me, with not being able to box on Shabbos, that Arum understood it and would try to, will do his best to help make it work. So my professional contract with him, which he did, there was a clause that said that I don't fight on Shabbos or Jewish holidays. And obviously, it kind of gets you get a lot of media attention and different things like that. But logistically, there's some challenges that we encountered, but it worked out okay.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because yes, it brought you a lot of media attention because you stood out, you were different. But when you look back, do you feel like it held back your career in any way?
No, I don't. I feel that what was supposed to happen happened, and sometimes things happen that you kind of feel upset about or feel sad about. Like, for example, my fight with Amir Khan. Just the result. So, and it's okay. That's part. That's sometimes that happens in life. But I think that that everything worked out the way it was supposed to be, and I was very blessed to experience the things that I've experienced, and to be able to be, now as a boxing promoter. So I fought for Arum for about 3.5 years, and I was always a very kind of observant kid in terms of just looking around and see how things function and asking questions. And I really got a chance to see, and then and throughout my career, I fought for a lot of big promoters, but I gotta say, Top Rank is at the very top. Mm. And from an early age, I got a chance to see organizationally how the biggest company in the world functions. And although I didn't have a chance to see some of the business things behind the scenes because I was just a fighter, but as a fighter, I got a chance to see a lot of the workings of what it's like. And and it really had a very positive educational effect on me into what I'm doing today, for sure.
Yeah, invaluable promotion to be a part of for what you're doing now, I guess. I'm really interested in the kind of interplay between religion and boxing, because we see so many boxers who are deeply religious. Whatever religion that might be, they might pray when they get into the ring, they might pray in the dressing room, they might have inscriptions on their gloves. And I wondered, why do you think that is? Why do you think the sport of boxing in particular seems to lend itself to individuals who are deeply religious?
Well, I think boxing makes you an introvert in some ways, and makes you usually, search for something and helps you garner that inner strength and the will to win. Because even in a gym, probably even more so in a gym than in fights many times, you box with some very good fighters and they're trying to kick your butt, so it's not a team sport. You can't pass the ball and take a little break and walk down the court. Somebody's in your face all the time trying to, hit you to the body and to the head and cause damage to you. So I feel that intense experience helps to bring about and the feelings of spirituality and of connection. And certainly there's lots of different fighters that are connected to their faith, and I think being I think that certainly boxing and being in that environment helps to facilitate that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You made your faith quite a big part of your boxing persona, as we saw, nicknaming yourself the Star of David. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Was that a conscious decision on your part? And if so, why did you decide to make it such a big part of who you were in the ring?
So let me tell you how the nickname Star of David came about. I was fighting my third professional fight. Didn't have any nicknames up until that point. In I think it was Coachella, California, and we were filling out the paperwork with the commission, and sitting next to me was Bill Kaplan, who is a Hall of Fame publicist, goes all the way back to the days of George Foreman, and he was the publicist for Top Rank at that time. And the commissioner, whoever it was, "Sir, do you have a nickname?" I said, "No, I don't have a nickname." And Mr. Bill Kaplan said, "Yes, he does. His nickname is Star of David." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that's how it stuck. So about making about you said highlight. What did you say? Highlighting myself. What was the question?
Was it a conscious decision on your part to make it part of your persona or
Right.
your faith? And if so, why did you decide, I'm going to be overt about this and make it part of who I am in the ring?
So I think as we see in professional sports and certainly in boxing, when a fighter progresses throughout his career and is good, the media and different folks about his life, about his things outside the ring. So that's who I was and who I am outside the ring. So obviously there gravitated an interest to because it was I had such a different background than from pretty much naturally came about. And through getting in touch with Chabad and through learning and internalizing that philosophy, I felt that it was my mission to be in those particular situations, and I felt that, and it goes back to my kind of all came together. It goes back to being in Star City Boxing Club, and the different folks that came from Brownsville, came from Bed-Stuy, came from very tough upbringing and had some very challenging times to in their lives, but they were proud of who they were and they expressed and were very very opinionated about it. So it so and with my Judaism, I felt that it was important for me to represent in the fullest possible way, and that through boxing I had my 15 minutes of fame. I felt that Judaism and Jewish culture was misrepresented in popular culture, and that you can be religious and do whatever it is that you want, and use your skills and your abilities for the best. So yeah.
Okay.
So it was a conscious decision, and my kippah, again, my Judaism it happens step by step. So I decided to wear it. Actually, I first wore I think it was 2008 when Joe Kazagi fought Roy Jones in Madison Square Garden. I fought him on the card, and because prior to that I used to just wear hats, just kind of a head covering, but then I wanted to be more expressive of who I was and what I was. And actually, leading up to that fight, HBO did a pre-fight special on me called Ring Life that covered some of that, some of my life outside the ring that had to do with Judaism.
You retired in 2013 after, I think, 38 fights, just 2 defeats. Did you know at that point? Did you think, right now I want to move on to the promoting side of things, or was that something that kind of happened gradually?
So I never officially retired, but it was my last fight. After I fought Amir Khan, physically it was, and I felt I wanted to fight the following week. So my contract with my promoter at that time ended, and I was looking for opportunities to get back in the ring. And I met with different folks, and it just didn't feel right at that time. So I said to myself, you know what? Why not start my own promotional company? And initially, I started the promoting business to progress my own career. But then I saw so many very talented and good fighters with who I saw in the gym and with whom I had a relationship that I felt that, and it's something that I loved with a passion, that I saw business in it. And, as an example, Jarrell Miller fought on my show in his second professional fight. And I back then recognized that he had the tools to be, heavyweight champion of the world. And then, but obviously the early stages of any business are difficult, certainly boxing. And it was quite challenging to kind of, crawl out and progress to a real level. Before my last fight, I, different obligations and I really couldn't make enough money from boxing to really sustain my family, so I had to do other work and do different jobs. So I would say that my heart and my mind wasn't in it 100% as it was, let's say even 5 years before that.
Yeah, and that's a dangerous place to be in boxing.
Yeah, it was. And I was thinking these thoughts in the locker room before going to the fight. But I mean, it's a dangerous place to be. I mean, I knew that I had enough experience to not put myself in danger. But you're 100% right. Boxing is not a game, and you have to do it with your full heart and soul.
Yeah. And in terms of promoting now, does your faith, does that pose any obstacles? Because obviously you must have to have shows on either a Friday night or a Saturday night. So how does that work for you?
Only benefits, no obstacles. I mean, it's I feel like every person has a philosophy through which he lives his life, and and every day is a is a chance to improve ourselves and to kind of get better. Yeah, we do events, and the events that we do on Friday night are done in the right, from a Jewish perspective. From a religious perspective, are done in the right way. We're not a religious promotional company. This is the philosophy through which I live my life. I don't think that that it stands in a way. We did when Matchroom first came to the US, before the Zone. They did 2 events on HBO. It was with Jarrell and Danny Jacobs, and so they hired us. They hired me to be their local promoter in New York City. Also, we co-promoted Jarrell. I remember making a deal with Eddie on Jarrell, and it was but before the Jewish holidays. It was like, and Jewish holidays were like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was like, Eddie, man, we got 30 minutes to make a deal. I won't be available for 3 days. He's like, what? Like, what do you mean? I was like, I won't be able to talk on the phone for 3 days. He's like, huh? Are you mad? But it worked out okay. We made a deal, and Jarrell almost fought Anthony Joshua. so
Yeah. So you make it work, basically.
We make it work. Yes.
Yeah. One of your star fighters is a female boxer who I'm a huge fan of, Clarissa Shields. She's a 3-weight world champion, double Olympic champion. Anything you can think of, she's already achieved in the sport. What made you decide to get involved in women's boxing? Because it's hard work. Promoting women's boxing is not easy.
Sure. So I read about Clarissa Shields in a Wall Street Journal in 2016. It was when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and it was before her second Olympics. And reading about her was like a short excerpt. I was like, man, this is the best fighter coming out of the Olympics, by far, better than anybody else. And I was like, man, I have to sign Clarissa. And so I spoke to Showtime about women's boxing and about Clarissa before I even made contact with her, and before she won a second Olympic gold medal. So because I had an event with Jarrell actually, and I had a chance to communicate with one of the folks that was in charge of the events, and I spoke about Clarissa. And then a couple of months after that, Mark Taffet, who was the head of HBO Pay-Per-View, who I fought for myself several times, with whom I had a relationship, became Clarissa's manager, and I reached out to him and told him about my idea of having Clarissa headline the first show on Showtime, and we was able to bring that together. And Clarissa is the first woman in the history of the sport under our promotional banner to headline boxing show on premium cable television.
Yeah, amazing.
And that was at MGM Detroit, and it really is quite incredible. And it was a sold-out event, and did great ratings. And after that, and it's phenomenal to see the growth of women's boxing around the world. Obviously, with Katie Taylor, Michaela Meyer. So after Clarissa fought on Showtime and headlined the show, so Cedar Breckers fought on HBO a couple of months later, and Katie Taylor a year or so later got a chance to fight on television. But Clarissa and all these ladies are wonderful champions and great fighters. But Clarissa, because of all of her accomplishments as an amateur and as a professional, and because of her incredible story, being an American hero, coming from Flint, Michigan, and being through the struggle, becoming the best over and over again, that opened the door for women's boxing, and I feel very honored and privileged to be a part of that journey.
Yeah. She's got an incredible story for anyone who doesn't know it. It's worth looking up. Lastly, Dmitry, what would you like to be your legacy in the sport of boxing?
So it's a multifaceted question answer for me, because in my life I represent a couple of different things. First of all, it's the immigrant experience. So I'm very grateful to the United States of America that I came here as an immigrant from welfare and food stamps, and not being able to speak the language, and was able to accomplish some great heights as a fighter, and some great fights as a promoter. And I hope to grow on to be, one of the best in the sport. So one legacy that I want to accomplish is that through hard work you can make it, no matter where you come from. As a religious Jew, I want to show to my community and to the world that that values are a great thing to have, that it's great to live by a set of laws, and that you can accomplish, if you work hard and you have the right intention, you can accomplish whatever you want, whatever you set your mind to. And boxing is something that's unusual. It's the entertainment business and it's the sports world, and it's certainly completely out of the box, if you will, for the Jewish community, and for the boxing, for the bread and butter of the boxing community. I feel that as a promoter, you have to make something new. You have to do things that have never been done before. So I feel that being involved with Clarissa was a part of that. I'd like to introduce, through my growth in the sport, introduce new ways of being able to present boxing to boxing fans, doing events in a way that have never been done before. It's a fine line of being able to present the best fights to the boxing fans and being able to guide the careers of fighters in the right way, so they can reach the best of their potential. I would like to leave a mark on the sport and being able to transcend and to raise it to new levels and new heights.
Yeah. Well, if you're following in Bob's footsteps, you've got about another 55 years plus to do it.
Bob Arum, I was thinking about it. He was able to reinvent himself so many times during his career.
Yeah.
And now we see the zone, but really, Bob Arum left HBO. He started doing stuff with ESPN, ESPN Plus, which was the app. And then, Eddie with the zone. And I feel that these are really incredible accomplishments because it changed the sport of boxing and widened its kind of reach. One day at a time, and hopefully bigger and better every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dmitry. I think that's been fascinating. I'm sure we've got some questions from the audience. So I'm going to bring in Neil now, who I think has been collecting them. Hi, Neil.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So just before we go on to the questions, just to remind everybody that for this series and to continue to develop and refine it, we'd welcome any feedback. And if you go to jw3.org.uk/feedback, there's a form you can fill in and we'd be thrilled to hear from you. It's completely anonymous, but it just helps us to continue to refine the series. So back to some of the questions that have come from our audience. And the first one is, what advice would you give to a young boxer, Dmitry, trying to break through?
To a young boxer. So first of all,
boxing and wants to make it a career.
I think boxing is a great sport for everyone to do, for girls and boys, as an educational platform. I usually don't advise anyone to be a professional boxer. Even though it's my business and I love it, I don't advise anyone to be a professional boxer. Only if you're exceptionally good should you turn pro. Only if you want the nationals. Only if you're willing to dedicate your life to it and to give it 100% should you turn pro. And if you've make it to the Olympics, go to the World Championships, go to the European Games. Amateur boxing is a phenomenal education. It's like do you go to to Harvard University or do you go to some other school? So being a great amateur boxer, usually, not always, there's exceptions to the rule, distinguishes you from the rest and shows that you can, I think in sports, certainly in boxing, to me, when I see someone who's successful in amateur boxing, that means that he's able to deal with the different influences of life and still be successful. Sure. Means that he can, his girlfriend can break up with him, someone can lose their job or whatever. The worst things in life can happen, but he still is to focus and train and win. So that's why amateur boxing is so important.
And are there any young boxers you particularly admire?
I'm sorry?
Are there any boxers breaking through that you particularly admire?
Clarissa Shields.
Very good, very good.
I mean, which is a phenomenal story. He happened to be my father, Otto Whalen, who's a heavyweight from Sweden. Another great story of what the sport of boxing can do. He was a kid from a small town in Sweden who wanted to be heavyweight champion of the world. And he got a chance in Fury and gave him the toughest fight of his career. And now he's fighting on American television on his way to the world title, making big money and living out his dream.
Great. Great. We've got a question for Sarah as well, in fact. Sarah, what inspired your love of boxing?
When I was growing up, I was always bizarrely into WWE wrestling, which my mum was incredibly concerned about, I think. So I think I've always kind of liked combat, I suppose. And then as I grew up and I got into sports journalism, I started watching the sport more. I actually started doing the sport myself because I loved keeping fit, but I managed to damage both my knees from running too much. So then I decided to take up boxing, which was around the same time as the 2012 Olympics were coming into view and women's boxing was going to be in the Olympics for the first time. So that was kind of the first time that I realized, hey, women can do this as well. And when you start learning the sport, you start watching it in a really quite a different way. So from just watching the big fights, then I wanted to watch everything. And then I realized how much there was to the sport. It's not just who can hit who the hardest. There's a hell of a lot more. The other stuff that when you're not punching is actually much harder, the footwork and the defense, etc. So that was probably how I fell in love with it, I suppose. Doing it myself really, really kind of pushed that along. And then being in the role that I was as a sports journalist and getting to speak to boxers and learning more about the sport that way, speaking to the trainers, going to gyms, it's kind of once you start looking into the sport, it's very hard not to fall in love with it in a way.
Sure. Thank you. So Dmitry, the question that's come from Jean in Weybridge is, what do you enjoy more, boxing or promoting?
Well, different stages of life. Today I enjoy promoting more. 10 years ago, I enjoyed boxing more. Very fortunate to be involved in the sport that I love. And certainly, in business, and sometimes you have your ups, sometimes you have your downs, sometimes you have your challenges. We have a TV show that we're working on, and it's quite challenging to come about in these Corona times. And right before one of the main event opponents failed the Corona test. So now our whole show is in jeopardy because of that. So as of now, I don't love it so much. But no, I'm just kidding. But I love it. Today I'm very, very fortunate to be able to wake up every morning and with an incredible amount of passion, and to go to sleep and think about it, and wanting to improve it and invent new things and progress my fighters and my business. So I love what I do every day, and I'm very blessed to be in this position.
Did you ever come across Zeb Judah in your fighting career?
I came across Zeb Judah. I grew up with Zeb many, many times. Yeah, we're good friends. Zeb is a great guy. And I actually met Floyd Mayweather in 1996. Zeb and Floyd came to Starrett City Boxing Club because they were at the training camp of Main Events. And that time, Main Events with Lou Duva, who was one of the big players in the sport of boxing. And I remember meeting Floyd Mayweather after he won the bronze medal. And then maybe 5 years after that, I turned pro and Mayweather was with Top Rank, and I spent many training camps with Floyd and have a good relationship with him as well. But Zab is a phenomenal fighter, a good guy, and yeah, we have a very good relationship.
Great. I think Sarah's got one more question, but before we go on to that, the last question I've got here is, what qualities make a great fighter in your opinion?
Hard work, dedication, the desire to be able to find the reserve to go on when everything else in your body and in your mind says to stop. And obviously skills, talent, you got to have a little bit of God's gift physically. And now that I'm a little bit removed from it and able to see the forest, so to say, it's quite interesting that boxing draws the attention of so many folks on different walks of life that are highly educated, that are, doctors, lawyers, businessmen, scientists, because it's a real test of human character in so many different ways. And and that's why we love to see great fights between great fighters. Like, for example, Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury is a fight that I'd love to see in the near future.
A great one's just come in. So before we go on to you, Sarah, what's your favorite boxing film? Hello? Oh. Could you hear that? What's your favorite film about boxing?
Me or Sarah?
Yeah, you.
Me.
Yeah. Well, both of you actually.
Well, it has to be Rocky.
Right.
Actually, my first boxing experience was seeing Rocky IV when I was a kid in Odessa.
Okay.
And I remember putting on boots and going out to run in the snow.
What about you, Sarah?
I love Cinderella Man, Russell Crowe. That's a great film. If anyone's not seen it, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Right. So Sarah, I think you had one more question to ask Dmitry before I go on to one more point, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course. If you could change one thing about boxing right now, Dmitry, what would it be? Because there's a lot about the sport that we both obviously love, but there are also a lot of things about it that I personally don't love, and I'm sure there are some things about it that you don't love. So
sure.
If you could change one thing,
I would say two things that just come up right away. First of all, there has to be unified rules in states, and hopefully, and similar in countries. So in the United States, every state has a different jurisdiction, has different laws. I would change that. I think that would help. And there has to be a unified body to organize and to run boxing. That would be great for the health of the fighters. For many times we see conflicts with managers, promoters, fighters, someone that can manage it, and there could be a structured system that can manage that process. I think that's helpful to the sport and to the business. The other thing is exclusive TV deals. I think that's terrible, certainly for someone in my position, because I have some great fighters like Clarissa Shields, like Jarrell Miller, like Otto Whalen, etc. And and our stable keeps growing. And when you get to a certain level, you're pushed to make a deal with someone who has an exclusive deal with a platform, and that's really unfair. And something that I really feel has to change in a way. I don't know how. I'm not sure how it could change in this environment, but certainly for someone like me, kind of makes you think outside the box. And it's in some situations it's great to make a deal with a different, with a co-promoter. Not to say that I think that that's a good thing, but you shouldn't be forced and pushed to do it, because that sometimes leads to unfair deals and unfair business, and I'm against that. So yeah.
Fantastic.
I'd agree with both of those.
Very good. It's been a fascinating evening. I just want to remind everybody that we welcome your feedback.
Sorry, I want to say, and Sarah, you're a respected writer, and I appreciate all the questions. But I do want to say that a lot of times it conflict. So when a promoter has a deal, he's able to bully other promoters and take advantage of the fighters that someone developed, and he has the backing to do whatever he wants, and he even has the funds to get lawyers and to so to say right that wrong, and that's a really terrible thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, and I only speak about it because I've seen it and I experienced it, and that's bad for business.
Yeah, too much power is never a good thing. I think we will see that.
What's the saying? Power, absolute power corrupts. Something like that. Yeah. So.
Right,
Yeah.
and thank you for sharing your insights. I'd like to thank you, Dmitry, for a fantastic evening, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you to Genesis Philanthropy Group for supporting this fantastic event. Just to remind people, we have a full program of online cultural and educational events to suit all tastes and help connect and sustain people through lockdown, including a term of inspirational classes and courses which start next week. Please head over to the online learning section on the website homepage and have a look. If you're inspired by Jewish community around the world, you might be interested in a course by Rabbi Jeremy Rosen, Jewish Communities in Time and Space. If you're interested in inspirational stories of Jewish identity, you might like Trudy Gold's course, Identities and Effects, about Herzl, Disraeli, and Jabotinsky. And if you've been glued to the news lately, you might like to hear Haggai Segal's session, Joe Biden, what will his presidency look like? So lots to look forward to there. Thank you again to Dmitry and to Sarah and to Genesis Philanthropy Group, and good evening.